Who got a notification? Blump. Wasn't me. Oh, sorry, it was me. Shut up. Oh, that means that only I heard it as well.
Yes.
I thought it was you guys.
Carton of beer.
I've closed the thing.
Hello and welcome to Because Language, a show about linguistics, the science of language. My name's Daniel Midgley. Let's meet the team. We have Mr. Ben Ainsley.
That's what I get this week.
And
we've had years of like funny quips.
I just
like this.
thought, let's just get straight into it.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And Dr. Hedvig Hyrgård.
That is correct. That is me. Thank you very much for welcoming us.
You named us both.
Yeah.
That's who we've got on the show. That's what's going on. I've got these two.
This is weird. I don't know how I feel about this. Like every week I complain about the weird lead-in, and now that it's not there, I feel its absence. Like a pair of old socks that I kind of resented, but now I want them back.
That's right. How does it feel?
Bad. It feels bad. I don't care for this. But I will soldier on. Somehow I will deal with the crushing grief that is this absence in my life, and we will soldier on.
You know what I should do? I should get our listeners to write the intros for you.
Oh,
Ooh,
God,
that's
no.
cute.
Oh my gosh.
No.
This opens up new frontiers. Okay. Listeners, please write intros for these two and send them to us. hello@becauselanguage.com.
Yeah.
Now that we're past that, let me just ask you both a serious question.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think dictionaries could make the world a better place?
Ooh. Okay. Obvious answer, straight out of the gate, is like dictionaries for endangered languages, obviously.
Okay, good. I like.
Right. So Dictionary of Noongar, the indigenous language from the part of Australia where Daniel and I live. Mint. Absolutely fantastic. Definitely making the world a better place.
Okay.
But was that the question as it was intended, or are you thinking more sort of like mainstream languages?
We're brainstorming at this point. There's no wrong answers.
The other thing, I guess, is to do their job in terms of like describing how language is used and updating it correctly when meanings change.
Okay, cool.
And communicate clearly what they're doing, because they can't not have derogatory terms in there, but they can say this is a derogatory term.
I guess my brain goes inherent value as not right now, but as a historical text.
Yeah.
So if you get a dictionary from 1910 or 1840 or whatever, that's a very valuable thing.
Chronicling the past.
So I get confused because in Sweden we have two things. We have the Swedish Academy word list and the Swedish etymological dictionary. And they are different objects. The word list just tells you how something is spelled and how it's conjugated and maybe a very short definition. And the etymological dictionary gives you like so much content you can't even handle it.
Wow.
You don't even know, bro. You don't even know.
You can't handle this much dictionary.
And also, they're moving through the alphabet. They haven't finished the alphabet yet.
Well, get on it.
They're scheduled to finish it in a couple of years, and then apparently their funding is going to end and they're not going to start over, which means that the entries from A are hella out of date.
Oh my gosh. From
They're
when?
so... late 1700s, 1800s? Like, they're old.
Oh my goodness.
They're old.
Whoa.
Wow, you know, it's
I
like...
was expecting 70s at the
No.
outside.
Oh my gosh.
No. This is one of the longest running. I can look up more information about it and tell you in a longer...
Hang on. Can we... Yeah, first of all, yes, please. Second of all, because I've got questions that you're probably not going to be able to answer. Second of all, here's one of them. Why would they start at A in 17 whatever the fuck and then just go, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to work word by word forward. Like, imagine if all the other dictionaries did that and they were all incomplete, so that just like... X, Y, and Z in every language were just the fucking Wild West of words that no one had any bearing on.
Yeah, the X, Y, Z are like all the new words, all the technical words that we have, and like A and B would be like ancient.
Fossils.
Yeah.
That's
They
why
also
it's
had-
akimbo.
I think it was sometime in the 80s they decided that V and W could be one chapter
Sure.
instead of like after each other or something like that. There was something with V and W, and it like set them back a couple of years because they just had to go through and like manually figure it out.
All right.
Good Lord.
So the V and W words were intermixed because of alphabetization.
All right, Daniel. So why are you
Anyway,
asking? Why are you getting us to
What's
brainstorm the good of a dictionary?
On this episode, I'm going to be chatting with Dr. Rebecca Shapiro, the originator of a session at the latest conference of the Modern Language Association. And the name of the session was, just think about this, it's called Just Words, Dictionaries, and Social Justice. And when I saw that, I thought, wait a minute, can dictionaries contribute to social justice? I guess we have seen some cases where it mattered.
They tend more often than not to be used as the rule books. And what we know about rule books is that when it comes to social justice, they tend to get used against one kind of person and not against another kind of person. I heard a great phrase the other day. How did it go? Populations in power want... Oh, I can't remember. Basically, they want certain groups of people to be bound by the rules, and they want exceptions to the rules for themselves, or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard that quote before. It was about the law. There are some people whom the law protects
Binds.
but does not bind.
Yes, that's it.
And then there are some people who the law binds but does not protect. And I love that quote. It's such a good quote. If you hadn't said it, I was going to say, I also have a quote. And it's this, but you picked the same one as I did.
Yay!
Well, one thing dictionary writers could do is also communicate that they are not a definite rule book that people should use to hit each other over the head with. Right?
That's a good one. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. And with Dr. Shapiro, I had a bit of a discussion about to what extent do dictionaries act as the rule book, and can that be leveraged? You know, because people do think that the dictionaries are these rule books that validate language, and maybe we should own it and say, you know what, we have a place to improve things here a little bit. So that's coming up.
Oh, that's exciting. I'm looking forward to that.
Also, our latest episode was a bonus episode for patrons. We talked about the American Dialect Society Words of the Year for 2021. We answered some mailbag questions. Hedvig sprang a surprise segment on us.
Yes.
That was great.
We will not
did.
mention. We will not mention.
I'm trying to think of more segments like this. Someone pointed out on TikTok and that I stole it from Anders and Mons. And I thought I stole it from another podcast, but apparently more than one podcast does this. And I do appreciate that someone was listening to Anders and Mons. It's very funny.
It was our friend Pontus who pointed that out. And yes, thanks very much. That was fun. It was a great game. You can see a snippet of us playing it on our TikTok account. And why not give us a follow? We're Because Lang Pod. Anyway, if you're a patron, you can hear these bonus episodes the minute they come out instead of waiting until I remember to make them public some months later.
I like transparency.
So go to Patreon and support the show. Hang out with us on Discord. Give us show ideas. Get goodies. It's great. Patreon.com/BecauseLangPod. And thanks to all of our patrons.
But let's do the news.
All right. This one was suggested to us by @ResearchElf on Twitter, a good friend of ours. We always like to hear what doggos can do with language.
They are so charming, aren't they?
They are.
Yep.
In fact, you can even, on occasion, and we've talked about experiments where this has happened, you can train them to lie very still in an MRI machine so that you can give them language input and see what their brains do.
I am genuinely
God.
amazed to hear that.
Yeah.
That you can get a dog to be that still. Because
Yep.
you need them to be real still.
And also not just for like, we think you have a brain tumor, we're going to check, but like giving them stimuli. And they don't go like, oh, hello, someone gave me stimuli. Oh, exciting. I'm going to get a bunch of good treats.
Yeah.
It's no dog I know.
Yeah, exactly. I've never encountered a dog like this.
But this work comes from Laura V. Koya and a team from Eötvös Loránd University in Budapest. So what they wanted to do was to see if dogs' brains acted differently to different languages.
Okay.
They
Yeah.
played them translations of The Little Prince in Spanish and Hungarian.
Presumably they were Hungarian dogs.
They were either dogs that were used to Spanish or dogs that were used to Hungarian. They'd heard one of the two. They also mashed up the Spanish and mashed up the Hungarian, not between each other, but so that it would be nonsense sounds, just to see.
Oh,
if
so like
they-
a mishmash Spungarian.
not a Spungarian. It wouldn't have been Hungarish, but it would have been like mixed up Spanish or mixed up Hungarian.
Oh, I see. In the same way that we do with our own young offspring.
Yeah. Or that famous comedy video on YouTube called What English Sounds to Other People.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like a couple arguing. Like that.
Prince and colon, ins and in choose all.
Yeah.
Can't get enough of that one. And take a guess. Did the dogs respond the same to all human language, or were they able to detect a difference?
I figure because we're talking about it, they detected a difference.
Maybe.
Were the voices the owners? No, the voices were random other people.
The voices were different people.
Right. So that makes a difference, right?
It does.
Because then they're not like listening to like their owner's voice versus not their owner's voice. Okay, all right. Correct. They're all non-owner's voices. So
that removes that variable.
Yeah, cool.
They found that the two languages triggered different responses in the auditory cortexes of the dogs. There were different patterns of activity between the Spanish and the Hungarian and the scrambled versions. So not only could they tell the difference between Spanish and Hungarian, they could also tell the difference between real language and smooshed up language. What impresses me is that pattern recognition is so subtle. They're very good at hearing the kinds of patterns that happen in a language, and when those patterns are broken, they notice. Or at least their brains do.
We're saying dogs, by the way.
We're saying dogs.
Yeah, okay.
So I thought that was kind of cool. Dogs are clever little blighters, and they're able to recognize patterns within language, and they notice when they're broken.
So I guess the question I would have then, the research question as a non-linguist that I would want answered, because who doesn't want my opinion, would be, so let's say speaking Hungarian to a dog. At what point of differentiation from Hungarian does it trigger different areas? Like,
right.
if
you speak Estonian.
if we establish, for instance, that basically for all of us, complex sounds gets processed in lots of different places, and it's unlikely that those places are going to double up a whole lot. What dictates when you do get a pattern match in the brain activity? That would be a really interesting question to answer, I think.
Sounds like future work.
Like, would Spanish and Portuguese be as eminently different, or would that be similar enough? Similar with English and what's the one? Dutch. Would English and Dutch come across really similar in a dog's brain?
And also, like, does like a child's and a woman's voice speaking Hungarian do a different thing? And so what is the thing that the dogs are trying to do with this pattern recognition? They're trying to recognize who is part of their herd, who is part of their gang, and who isn't, right?
Well, I think that is what's going on. I mean, dogs have a deep need for affection and affiliation, and when you combine that with really powerful pattern recognition software, what you get is a critter that can recognize patterns in the language that it's heard and distinguish them from patterns that it hasn't heard. I think that's what's driving the effect we're seeing here. Let's go on to our next story. This one was suggested by Margaret on our Discord server. It's about the nation of Turkey.
Yes.
Hello, Turkey.
I saw this. It's a trend.
You mean like the trend of nations renaming
wanting
themselves?
To be called their names. Yeah. So there's a number of things that have happened in the last couple of years. Like more and more people are saying Myanmar for Burma. The Czech Republic, I understand, wants to be known as Czechia, which makes sense for like all of the other European languages around. No, we don't say Czech Republic. What's another one?
Eswatini instead of Swaziland.
Yeah.
The Ivory Coast wanting to be called by its French name.
Côte d'Ivoire. Yeah.
Côte d'Ivoire, yep. I also came across a TikTok creator today who talked about the fact that the Republic of Congo and the Democratic Republic of Congo mostly get called by Congo, one capital name, Congo the other
Kinshasa.
Capital name.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I grew up with that, and I get really confused with the Congos. But anyway, so as far as I understand, this trend or this pattern has also reached Turkey.
So let me dig into the cobwebby bits of my brain. Turkey's name in Turkish is like... Is it kind of Turkey sounding?
It's very Turkey.
It's very Turkey sounding, but it's spelled T-U with umlauts, R-K-I-Y-E, and it sounds something like Turkey. or Turkey. So this comes from Turkey's President Erdogan. The communique that he issued says, the word Turkey represents and expresses the culture, civilization, and values of the Turkish nation in the best way. This is also going to affect the way that exports get labeled and the way that other governments refer to the country. So why would they be doing this? Any indications?
Well, I don't know how much Australians know about Erdogan.
He's not a great guy.
He's a fairly controversial figure, yes.
Yeah, he's like he's a dictator in the like iron fist in the velvet glove style dictator, like not like a crazy maniacal despot, but also not really a democratic leader in the way a lot of people would conceive of it.
There are just a lot of we're not a politics podcast and there's a lot to dig in there, but like I suspect, if I'm a bit cynical, that he is launching this campaign for some sort of own gain that has to do with drumming up support for the Turkish nation state as a sort of monoculture.
Right. So kind of like a fascistic right-wing nationalism type thing that seems to be working pretty well for a lot of world leaders all over the place these days.
Yeah. But to be fair, like, the name change is not that big. Turkey to Turkey. Like, no one's going to look at products that are labeled, like, made in Turkey and be like, I have no idea where that is. Like,
yeah.
So I'm seeing a few reasons that are going around for this. One is it could be part of a naming scheme that seems more natural for Turkish people. It could be a signal that they don't want to accommodate to the English-speaking world as much as they have. Some people actually think that it's because of the name of the bird, which has a negative connotation. As we know, turkeys are kind of dense.
Yeah, like, oh, you're being a bit of a turkey.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, turkey.
I don't think they're gonna get away from that with this new name.
No.
It's really similar. Like,
it's not Burma and Myanmar. Like it's.
I don't like those kind of jokes because it's like when people say like, "Oh, you're from Hungary, you must be hungry all the time." It's I mean,
boring.
Yeah,
like it is a
get better material.
It is a pretty low form of like year 2 humor.
Yeah,
especially when turkeys are not native to Turkey, they are native to North America. The reason they're called turkeys is because there was a bird that came from the Ottoman Empire, the guinea fowl, so people called them turkeys. And then when the North American turkey came along, they sort of said, well, that looks kind of like the guinea fowl, so they transplanted the name onto the turkey.
Is that also related to where the 3 different guineas in Africa
There's
and the one guinea?
I watched a video about this recently. It's madness.
I thought there was 3.
No, because there's Guyana.
There's 3 countries, right?
Yes.
There's 3 Guinea countries.
Yes, but then there's Papua New Guinea, which is also related to this Guinea.
Yes.
And Guyana is not related, I think. But it's all to do with, I think, a Berber word for people of West Africa. There's a great video about it.
So it's not to do with the guinea fowl? Or is it to do with the guinea fowl? Does the guinea fowl get its name?
It's probably because they are from there or have some sort of connection.
Right,
or something.
okay.
Can I just say that I ran across a connection that blew my mind, but had a connection to Turkey. There's a certain color. Can you name the color?
That is related to Turkey?
Like Ottoman something?
Turkish blue?
Light?
Turquoise.
Oh.
So called because there were these greenish blue precious stones that came from Turkestan or one of the Turkic empires, and in French they were called turquoise. And
wow.
I had never made that connection between Turkey and the color turquoise. Isn't that great?
That is an interesting connection that I am very glad you made me aware of. So Turkey has wanted to be called Turkia and is going to be called Turkia? Like, is that what we're sort of thinking here?
They're sort of eyeballing it. It might be off in the future, but some things have already started.
Right. It doesn't feel as definitive as the Burma-Myanmar one, does it? Like
it's not a huge change. It's
like
it's subtle.
And it's not just that the Burma-Myanmar one seemed to obviously be quite different, but like that seemed... Usually when countries do a name thing like this, not usually, sometimes when countries do a name thing like this, it's accompanied by some sort of significant political, social sort of change-up of some kind.
Or independence movement from whatever nation was colonizing them.
Throw off of colonial empire, that sort of thing. Yeah, this is I'm sort of, I'm a little bit on Heather's side on this one where...
Are you underwhelmed?
I'm just looking very squintily at the powers that be in Turkey and being like, righto, chaps, what you up to here?
Well, we'll find out, I guess.
Which, look, don't get me wrong, like, absolutely, take that scummy English and kick it off your, like, beautiful shores. I'm on board with that as an idea, no question.
Yep.
But yeah, if it barks like a dog and walks like a dog, there might be something that can understand Hungarian going on there.
Finally, this is some work from our friends Bodo Winter, Mark Dingamansa, and team. We know that language is arbitrary, but we love how some bits really aren't arbitrary at all. We already knew, because of work by Damien Blasi and a team back in 2016, that words for nose tend to have an N sound across languages. Words for round things tend to have an sound in them. But, for those of you who have not read the run sheet, what would a R sound mean in different languages?
Ooh, like that rolling R, the rotative?
Yes, the alveolar trill R.
Is it silly that my brain just thinks of a drum roll? So I'm like, when you're announcing something important?
Okay.
I know that Plato thought that trills and stuff like that were involved in words that had to do with motion and movement.
Ooh,
Plato,
that's
really?
fun.
Yeah, because he wrote this whole thing about the name givers.
Oh, is this from Plato's Cratylus dialogue?
I trust Hedvig because she had a European education, so I just assume all they did was like read philosophers.
I got bored and stopped reading halfway through, but no, I haven't.
I love how we went from, I read Cratylus to like, well, I skimmed Cratylus.
I skimmed Cratylus because I thought it was dumb.
Yeah, because he's like, basically he has the idea that once upon a time, these magical divine people walked the earth and gave name to all things. And then words denigrated from that. And the name givers were so, immaculate in their wisdom that they gave iconic names. So if you look for iconicity, you can get closer to the wisdom of the name givers. So
this sounds sort of like related to the idea of a Socratic true form of a thing and all that kind of stuff.
Platonic ideals, yeah.
Platonic ideals. Plato has a lot to answer for. A lot of intellectual mischief from Plato.
Yeah, so what have our good friends been up to?
They found that across languages, a lot of R sounds are used for words indicating roughness, or abrasiveness, or asperity.
What's asperity?
Asperity.
Yeah, I was going to ask the same thing.
Did I make that word up? I might have just been making a word up. No. I might be deriving an English word from Spanish aspero, which is abrasive or grating. Is asperity a real word?
Hold on.
I've never heard it before, but I'm looking at this newscast and it says that they analyze words for rough and smooth.
No, you're right, Daniel.
In 332 spoken languages. I'm looking at the map and it's a lot of languages, but notably there are none from the Americas for some reason.
Oh, dang it.
But
okay.
It can be really hard to get. Oh no! So this map has 110. They might have had more in the larger sample. I'll look at some more maps. And they found that there was a significant pattern of trills. So when Daniel says R sounds, that's what they were looking at in words that had to do with roughness.
And if your language doesn't have a R sound, like most Englishes don't, they found that you'll still probably find the pattern with That was kind of their fallback.
Okay.
Right.
What do you think?
That makes sense.
Trills are so funny because we have them in Swedish, and my Swedish nibblings were trying to teach it to my husband, and they were like, prutt or whatever, and which means fart, and they would like point at their mouth. I'm pointing at my mouth now and be like, "Look at my tongue! Look what my tongue's doing!" And like you can't see.
You can't see shit.
He doesn't have X-ray vision. My husband is beautiful and super and funny and kind, but he's not Superman. He cannot see through your skin. And they would just desperately do this over and over again and be like, look at my tongue. He can't see it.
Children are so stupid.
I wonder if there's a pattern between r and farts. Words for farting.
Oh,
Future
yeah, because it
research,
gives
guys.
that, it kind of has that like kind of a quality to it. I get you.
Exactly.
I feel that.
Or maybe just any sort of trill. I don't know.
I think that is interesting. And also, yes, Daniel, asperity is a word and it tends to actually be used in material science. So, like, you can sort of judge the asperity of a surface, meaning its roughness or its smoothness, apparently.
Thank goodness. For a second, I doubted my vocabulary. I'll never doubt it again.
Oh, by the way, quick update on Wordle. I played it and got like a 0. Like I did not get the word.
You understood the game. You understood the rules.
Well, kind of, not really. The first time I played, I was convinced that if I got like one of the colored letters that I'd got that letter right. So I was guessing that letter in the right spot, but I've now realized that means it was somewhere else in the world, blah, blah, blah.
I did that the first time too.
I looked at the rules.
Anyway, Aish, God damn it, my partner, who is like so much smarter than me in every way, first try got a 3. Got it on the third try. And I'm just like, Jesus.
Well, she is smarter than you, Ben.
I kind of think if you get it on the first or the second, that's just luck. That's
luck.
like, there's
definitely.
no skill involved.
Absolutely.
Third, it can be a bit the same. But like third, fourth, fifth, then you're starting to get into like, you have applied knowledge. And if you do it in hard mode as well, then it can get really, really difficult.
Well, I've been doing a thing where, because people are posting on our Discord under the games section, and whenever somebody beats me or ties me, I give them a crown reaction, like, you are the king or the queen.
That's
wow,
cute.
That's really egotistical of you.
Yeah, a little bit.
That is incredibly
I shall dispense the
egocentric.
crown.
Yeah.
Congratulations, mortal.
For a second, can we talk about the words that are in Wordle? Because I've forgotten how they come up with the words. Because they must decide like a list of 20 words for the next 20 days or something. Because they're not just randomized from a word list. They are like interesting words.
There's about a couple thousand words. The creator of Absurdal has more knowledge than I do. And they say that they have about 2,000 words that they choose from, but another 11,000 words that you can pick that are legal words.
But that's Absurdal. What about the regular Wordle?
The Absurdal creator was saying this about Wordle.
Oh, okay.
And they use the same dictionary. So that's what seems to be happening there.
Because like the German one the other week had orgy.
Okay.
I just thought that was funny.
That's a 4-letter word.
No.
German.
How did Germans spell orgy?
You know, I was thinking about, because the German Wordle should be like 9 letters, I think.
Yeah.
Right?
No, it's 5. It's 5. It's really hard.
How did Germans spell orgy?
O-R-G-I-E? Orgie.
It was orgy. I know it was. But how is it spelled in German? Good question. I solved it.
Good job. And I think that the Vietnamese Wordle should be like 2 letters.
No, it's It's I-E. Yeah. O-R-G-I-E.
Can I just say that for whatever reason, my brain seems to have a playful attachment to an IE ending, because an orgy with an IE seems far lighter and more fun than an orgy with a Y, which is how we spell it in English, which just seems, and I'm not trying to be like not sex positive here, but it just seems a little bit kind of like gross and mean, whereas orgy with an IE is like, ooh.
Yeah, let's have an orgy.
Just nipping out for a cheeky orgy, folks.
You're digging too deep into your feelings well for words. Like you're exaggerating. You don't have that strong attachment to these two words.
I have the same intuition secretly.
No,
I do.
You're right. I don't. I'm hamming it up for the sake of the show, but I definitely inherently feel that the IE is a much funner orgy than the Y.
It's cute.
Yeah,
it's cute. I'm here with Dr. Rebecca Shapiro, former Executive Secretary of the Dictionary Society of North America, author of Fixing Babel, an historical anthology of applied English lexicography. Dr. Shapiro, thank you so much for coming on and having a chat.
Oh, thank you so much.
So you ran a session at this year's Modern Language Association conference called Just Words, Dictionaries, and Social Justice. Could you tell me a little about the session? How did it go?
You know, at first, when it was happening, I was like, wow, this is really interesting, listening to these great papers. And then when I was re-listening or re-watching this morning, I was struck by how brilliant these people are. And I got to, when you're rereading a book, you pick up all of the other things that you missed. And there was so much to think about, and the ways that these papers were so different and yet interrelated. So yeah, all of the various ways that we can think about dictionaries as being tools of injustice and then revising them to be tools of justice.
Wow, that is such a different view of a dictionary than I've ever had. I mean, this is one of those things that I flipped back and forth on, because when I knew nothing about language, I thought, oh, let's go to the dictionary because they're the ones who validate words. And in fact, many people, when I talk to people on the radio or on the show, people get angry at dictionaries when they include words or definitions they don't like irregardless or literally or things like that. So that's where I started off. And then when I learned a bit more about language, I thought, well, that's kind of silly. Dictionaries don't validate words and definitions. They're just looking at what we do and including stuff that we do as we use language. And now I've kind of realized, no, I think dictionaries actually do play a role in validating words and definitions, and I think that they play a much greater role in setting agendas than we linguists typically think. Am I going way off base here?
No, I don't think so. But I do think that there's been a huge shift in language, and its use is always ideological anyway. You can't escape that. But lexicographers now try to be as neutral as possible, but at the same time, we have to recognize that lexicographers 200 years ago probably thought they were being as neutral as possible. Well, maybe they didn't. There were there were some very specific and obvious agendas, and they would say so in their front matter, which is part of what I was writing about in my book. But lexicographers today try to think about how expansive definitions can be, or the various senses of them, and then try to be neutral and inclusive in a way that was different than the perhaps neutrality of, the historical dictionaries.
Okay. Well, I want to get a feel for what maybe neutrality might look like, or what would be better than neutrality. Can you give me an example of a definition that you feel, I don't know, does it the right way? Or maybe you could even give me an example of phony neutrality that you didn't like.
Well, there's a famous or lexicographical famous example from a couple of years ago. And one of the dictionaries, I can't remember which one, and it would be easy enough to find, but included in one of its dictionaries the word or the term anchor baby. And
Oof.
Yeah, and I don't remember the exact definition either. And so, yeah, what happened was this word was defined in what the editors thought was a fairly neutral and perhaps benign way. And what it lacked was a more socially sanctioned term, as such as, term of, abuse or derision or slang or non-sort of normative. And I guess it was lacking that label that would have appeased some people. But on the other hand, without a more judgmental or prescriptivist definition, it probably wouldn't have appeased a lot of people. So people picked up on that sort of neutral terminology and said, aha, this is the dictionary being endorsing a negative and a pejorative term versus presenting something neutral, because it's not a neutral term. You can't make a term like that neutral.
Because what it means is it implies that a pregnant person has come to the United States for the purpose of having a baby so that they could claim, aha, see, I've got a U.S. citizen in my family. Now I'm laying claim to being a citizen or something like that because I'm the parent.
Yeah. Right. And what you just said is something that is also occurring. There's a discussion about a pregnant person
I did that on purpose because I'm trying to do that, you know.
I know you did. But this is where we are with what lexicography would be. You would have assumed 20, 25, 40 years ago that the only people who could get pregnant are women. And,
yeah.
Right. But who are sort of biologically and from birth women, and who are not in the process of transitioning to being anything other than a biological female, if that makes sense. So
sure.
And I mean, I'm trying to parse my own words. And so so
that's what we do, right?
Right, of course. So we're in a sort of period of transition where possibly not even yet, we're trying to understand who exactly is the kind of person who can give birth and redefine that. So I think, like I said, we're not quite in that period of transition with this because the lexicographers and linguists are sort of ahead of what other sort of ordinary humans are doing. And it hasn't sort of reached outer social linguistic or language uses. I think we're actively in a period of transition with pronouns and you know, they. And I think if you look at maybe the way that people have started arguing about they versus pregnant person, you will see that we're actually sort of ahead linguistically in terms of they.
Let's take it a step farther because I tweeted and I tagged you in this. I said, actually, people are right. Dictionaries do serve to validate words in usage and aren't just a neutral chronicle of language. You replied, if you don't mind me putting this out there, you replied, yep, that's it. And they're colonial enterprises. I haven't stopped thinking about that, but could you tell me a little bit more about what you mean?
Yeah. So in my work and in the works of some of the panelists, the MLA panel on, you know, Just Words, we look at what the language of the dictionary says and the language of the lexicographer and how that affects usage of language and looking things up, you know, as Jack Lynch is a really good friend, and he also comes up with fantastic book titles. And one of his recent books was, You Could Look It Up. And so I know it's the best. So what people end up doing, of course, is, you know, going to the dictionary, and they hardly ever, at least right now, read the front matter and read the, you know, historical or social or political perspective of the authors. And today, lexicographers try not to be authors, but editors. And so the concept of colonial projects is, like, for example, some of the 18th century dictionaries were discovering new words and incorporating them into the dictionary, their particular dictionary.
That's so pervasive, isn't it? That little wording.
And it's so powerful too, right? So when I was looking at some words for examples of maybe change over time, I was looking at some of the there were some colonial words that were being taken in. And I don't mean colonial as in what Tracy Nagel talks about in terms of, you know, colonial oppression and India. I mean, just like, here are some interesting and new animals, or here's a plant. And so there's, you know, different kinds and levels of colonial projects. But another one I think that is really interesting is Webster's dictionary. His first dictionary that is the English Dictionary of the American Language. And he sort of declared independence from England. And he wrote in his front and back matter, these are the words that we don't need anymore because we are, you know, a new country. We are a democracy. We don't need XYZ words in our dictionary. We will use this instead. And then in his back matter, he writes about how this dictionary or the American language is going to be used by more people than the languages of the Americas. So what he's doing is saying English is on the wane, and it's going to be adapted and reused for the purposes of the people living in these places. And he ended up being very right.
It sounds like what we're doing is we're arguing that we need to own our biases, and maybe it would be good if we could take on a little bit of an activist role if you're a lexicographer. Does that sound right? Is that what we're trying for here?
You know, I am no longer, or at least at this point, a working lexicographer. So I'm someone who studies words and language. I wouldn't feel comfortable talking about an activist role.
Okay.
I definitely want to have somebody who is working in dictionaries talk about that. But what I do in my work is I try to show biases and reveal what people might have been thinking about or what people are thinking about and what this information that we have can do, for or against us and for what purpose. So somebody who is more aware of what's happening, for example, with computers and artificial intelligence was Jeffrey Binder in that panel. What he's doing is, I think, more like what you're talking about. And his paper in the panel was the one that I kept coming back to and finding new and amazing things about, because what he was showing was that, and I knew it to an extent, but he was showing that, the binary systems of coding are absolutely binary, but they're also built-in biases. So, for example, he described a conflict between different computer scientists who felt that computer languages should be created from English or other, natural languages and then sort of translated into computer languages, as opposed to people who will code according to, mathematical principles and or algorithms. And the problem he's highlighting about this neutral mathematical coding is that what ends up happening is that computers are going to trawl many texts and look for patterns of usage, and then they're going to be able to create new texts from these patterns. But Jeff reminds us that what happens with these patterns is that they reflect actual usage, which means they can be negative, pejorative, biased, and they just get turned into computer languages that we will come up against when we do a search. For example, online, when we look for a synonym in Microsoft, when we do all kinds of things that we don't know what we're doing as far as language, these things will come up and replicate what we have as perhaps negative patterns in language use, and we just continue to use them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I mean, computers are drawing on human data, so of course that's going to reflect human biases. So, okay, if we're not just talking about lexicographers writing dictionaries, we're talking about people who have to define words in any respect. For example, in the legal domain or whatever. What do we do when the definition of a word in reference works is out of keeping with the vision of social justice that we'd like to promote?
I think there's a couple of things.
Come on, Dr. Shapiro, fix it.
Yeah. Well, I'm working on it. No, I think that there's a couple of things is that we have to, we have to get people who understand the distinctions between this kind of usage and that kind of usage, and to be able to maybe pick out different senses and perhaps mark them as maybe the OED does, or Merriam-Webster does, as, archaic or slang or regional or something like that. But even then, if you start picking out definitions or senses of words, with those kinds of marks. And what are you left with? You're still left with something that's ideological. What is the norm? So do you end up marking everything? Or do you end up marking a few things? And so you have to create these, perhaps new criteria for understanding what kinds of words are used and why. So there's the sort of the back end in terms of computer technology, trying to figure out who uses what and why, and do we want to perpetuate these usages? And that shows up like anytime you look for a term, you just type in, definition. Let's see. I'm going back to anchor baby. Mm-hmm. And now the term is marked as offensive, whereas it hadn't been.
That's good.
Yeah. And what's nice is the dictionary is cited. So it's definitions from Oxford Languages.
Yeah.
And then there's some interesting questions below. So what is the meaning of an anchor baby? What is an anchor mom? You can tell that a computer did this search because now we have what is an ankle baby. I'm like, I don't think ankles and anchors are the same.
No, but in Australia, we do call children ankle biters.
Well, we do too.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But what I think just happened was that some computer heard people pronounce, and then came up with this, similar sounding word. But if you click on the link for what is the meaning of anchor baby, it takes you to Wikipedia, which is a completely different situation because you know how Wikipedia entries are created as opposed to Oxford language entries. And so there's a whole other, or my students would say, whole nother situation. Yeah, right. A whole nother situation because you have the first citation, which is from Oxford Languages, and you've got the, very clear offensive labeling right on top, made, created by human beings, albeit, thoughtful and, sensitive human beings who probably argue about these terms a lot, to Wikipedia, which is definitely mediated, but it's not mediated to the extent that, and edited to the extent that, for example, a dictionary would be.
It sounds like what we're arriving at then is, number one, usage notes will save us all.
Yeah, hopefully.
And number two, we're not going to get it all at once. This is going to have to be ongoing into the future.
Yeah, and what I feel kind of sad about is that understandings of and sort of the value of dictionaries is diminishing, I think. At the same time, the value of words and definitions are going up. I'll go to the dictionary. People always say, well, the definition of this or Wikipedia is that, but it's like, but how are we teaching critical reading, critical thinking as far as who can we trust and what can we trust as far as what a word means or what a sense is? And that's a big concern of mine.
That is a really big concern. I mean, how do you teach critical thinking about words?
I think one thing that has come up in my teaching a lot is I love to give a historical lexicographical assignment. I ask students to look at a variety of words, in the OED and see how they have changed over time. And I love when my students, who are mainly from Caribbean countries, it's fascinating where I teach in Brooklyn. And so I asked them to look up a couple of terms that may be familiar to them or interesting to them. And there's some things that I would love to have more expansive information on, or I guess everything needs more etymological distinctions and qualifications. So there's two things that come up, or two words that come up in my teaching that really floors my students. One is the word coolie. And it's used in a variety of different terms in the Caribbean, and it's also used in the U.S., but they're used for different purposes and for different ethnic peoples. So in the U.S., it was used often for the people from Asian descent who created the westward expanding railroad system. And in the Caribbean, it was often used to apply to people who were imported and brought against their will from India or the Indian subcontinent to the Caribbean by the British. And so my students will look at the definitions and history and development of that term, and they will see that, for example, in Trinidad, currently it's a positive thing to have coolie hair. Oh. Which, yeah, at least, again, from my students.
I don't know what that is.
Well, remember, I am not the expert on this. It's my students who tell me, but what coolie hair is allegedly good hair, meaning straight.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, because of the connection to Indian women and Indian hair. So if you have coolie hair, that means that you have a positive connotation connected to your hair and its structure or its style, as opposed to thinking about how those people with that hair got to that place and the history of what those people experienced. And so when we talked about that in class, my students were, and they're mostly female who use that term, really shocked to find out that what they thought was a positive term actually came from a very negative and pejorative place in the lexicon of some of the Caribbean countries. Another example would have talking about when it comes to the colonialization of dictionaries, or the colonialization of words. The other term that Tracy Nagel and Shumeet Ganguly talk about in their paper on the panel is the term thug. And what my students start out with is the current definition or usage of the word thug, which is related to or applied to criminality or alleged, bad behavior by maybe young African American men. And they're shocked to find out that it has nothing to do with that at all.
Wait, I don't know this one.
You don't?
I don't think I do. I mean, where does it come from?
Oh, you do. So it comes from, it's from India, and it was used by the British in its sort of oppressive domination of that region. And what a thug or a thuggy was and practice is very different from what the British decided that it was. So these the people who practiced this, it was a kind of banditry, but it was also related in some ways to a religious structure. It had ritualistic practices, and it wasn't necessarily tied to one particular ethnic group. And what the British did, though, was try to distinguish those practitioners of this cultural practice and link them with all kinds of criminal activity. But it wasn't that case. Okay. So what the British were doing was taking this term that had been religiously or spiritually based and twisting it and turning it into something really violent. And so as, Dr. Ganguly says, which is really kind of fascinating, is that it's the product of overworked colonial imaginations. And they're trying to, of course, excuse English behavior and English suppression of the native Indian population. Well, of course, India didn't exist at that time, and England made it exist. But my students don't know the origin of that term, and they don't know that thug was not nearly as negative as it had become. And then we discuss how it migrated from India to England and from, with some people. And then we talk about, for example, London and Jamaican music and the connection there, and then how it went back over to the US. So it's with music. So they really enjoy knowing the ways that these terms migrate, they develop, they change over time, and how they're connected with them.
And this is the kind of explanation that a dictionary or a reference work would really, really benefit from. I mean, I had no idea of the spiritual origins of thug, and I can see it in a slightly different light now.
Yeah, and the fact that my students see that their current usage of thug is not necessarily something to enjoy or, benefit from, but it's again, coming from a deeply violent and colonial past, and that once they become aware of it, they think maybe twice, hopefully, about using the term.
Okay, so can you give me an example of a definition or a sense or a word that you think is not great? Like if I gave you the Oxford magic wand and you can change whatever you want.
Wife beater.
Oh, shoot. The clothing. Yeah.
Right. And this is a great example of how words, when repeated over and over, just become sounds, not necessarily connected to meaning. And so I use that as an example of my students having no concept of what the words actually mean, but wife beater has just become, if you translated it into International Phonetic Alphabet, it would just, not really have, it wouldn't be, wife beater as in the man who beats his wife, but it's just wife beater sound. And they have disconnected or unlinked the meaning of, the Stanley Kowalski, Streetcar Named Desire connection, with what you wear at, underneath a shirt.
Yep. That's pretty odious. I remember when I first started hearing that, I was like, but fortunately in Australia, singlet is the term. I don't hear that one a lot. And I'm not even sure why it's a singlet. So once again, just sounds. Over time, everything becomes etymologically opaque. As far as you're aware, what kind of feedback have you gotten on this work? Are the writers of reference works on board, or do they imagine that they're neutral and they want to stay away from what they might see as political commentary?
So the people I know who are doing this kind of work are mostly academics, so we can say what ought to be all we want. Nice. But the people who create and write dictionaries, by the way, are fewer and farther between because of some of the things that Jeffrey is talking about with the machine translation and AI. There's less of a need of human intervention. But I think what people who work in these areas would say is that there's less and less money for dictionary work, lexicography, reference book making, less money, less interest. When something becomes more corporatized, then the product often becomes inferior. So you've got fewer people working on these things. And one of the problems also is that print dictionaries, if you're going to add a lot of commentary or sort of meta narrative around a particular word with respect to like its history and development, that cuts into budget too, because it's a discrete entity and it's got a page limit or a word limit, and you can't go over that. So some of the entries that I've worked on as an editor was to make something as clearly stated as possible, but often with as few words as possible. So it's not easy to do this. I think that people who are lexicographers would love to add, extra commentary and be able to explain and define with context, but it's not necessarily so easy. Now, an online dictionary, of course, does not have a page limit at all, but then you get into some of the issues that Jeffrey was talking about, that there's the lack of human element to some degree.
What do you want people to take away most from this?
I think what I was struck by the ways that the value of and power of words and authority is so embedded in our culture. And we feel like we can change it by brute force, but it doesn't necessarily work that way. We fight over language constantly, but we're, I think, not really aware of how high the stakes can be. And that's really important to take away from all of this, that, systemic racism is important to know now, but it's also important to know the history of racism with respect to Jews and the Holocaust. It's important to know how embedded language is into our computer systems and our computer codes. So it's so powerful and it's so potentially lethal, but it's also potentially beautiful in a way that we can maybe acknowledge and change.
Dr. Rebecca Shapiro is the author of Fixing Babel, a historical anthology of applied English lexicography. Dr. Shapiro, thank you so much for having a chat with me today.
Oh, thank you so much.
Let's go on to Words of the Week. And Ben, you found one, but it's also from Bentley on Facebook.
So I should full tilt say that I did not find it. My partner found it, Aisha, friend of the show. Once time presenter, probably going to be a presenter again, as she just is better than me at everything.
Very welcome. Very welcome.
And I'm surprised I didn't come across this, because we have figured out that her For You page on TikTok and my For You page on TikTok are nearly identical. Most times when we nudge the other person, go, hey, look at this cool thing I found, they're like, yeah, I saw that. She found a very fascinating TikTok that is quite relevant to our show, because our show somewhat recently, changed its name to Because Language.
Yes.
One of the reasons we renamed the show Because Language is because of how interestingly because was being used as a language artifact in the vernacular of young people, specifically young women. Now, we've got an update. We've got a fresh way that because is being used at the start of a sentence, and that is no because.
Because.
The way no because is being used is that you might hear a person just firing into the blind with a tweet or something like that and just saying, no, because blah, 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 blah.
That's right.
It basically seems to mean, get out of town. You won't believe this. Or stop what you're doing. You have to, it's essentially like I've got big news and it's surprising kind of, it's a kind of modifier.
So this is what Bentley on Facebook was saying. They say, I heard about this new construction that's showing up around Twitter. People are apparently starting a conversation with no because. Not in reply to any question, though. The slim amount of looking into it I've done seems to suggest that the meaning is akin to stop and check this out. I thought it might make an interesting word of the week at some point. Thanks, Bentley.
Bentley was on the money.
Yep.
So, first of all, are you able to say, if your child says I don't want to go to bed, and you ask why, and they say no because, is that acceptable to you?
I don't think that's how it's being used here. It's
no,
very
I know.
much.
I'm trying to get the steps in between. I'm trying to get.
I don't think so. I think that if somebody makes an assertion like this happened first, and then you can say no because that happened earlier.
Right. So you can't use because without a thing after. Because small children in Swedish would be därför, me. It's just
So Swedish children would say a version of no because as a retort.
But as an answer, as I'm being obstinate.
Oh, interesting.
Oh. No, if I'm understanding you right, the translated version would be something like no because I said so, but the I said so is just not there.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And also, parents might do it when the children are why do I have to wear a helmet when I'm biking? And after a while, you're because.
Yeah. This feels different.
This is different, yeah.
So here are some examples of tweets.
Yeah, I want to have examples.
Out of nowhere, nobody said anything, and then this person tweets, no, because how cute is this? And there's a photo of a Nintendo controller.
Yes.
Or, no, because why are people hating on other streamers? No, because why are people following me out of the blue? Mm-hmm. So I guess the no is like stop. And then the because is, here's why I'm stopping you. Does that make sense?
Also, I think it is about things that are in the zeitgeist, if you will. Mm-hmm. Like, it is things... It reminds me a little bit of when people start by saying the masculine urge to race anyone when you're on a bike. Which is like, it doesn't sound like it's a complete sentence, but it refers to something that everyone's like, oh yeah.
I'm wondering if the things seem quite zeitgeisty, not because the way no because is being used requires it, but because that's just the kind of shit you tend to see on Twitter and that sort of thing. So like, I don't know if there's a strong link there necessarily, so much as a casual sort of accidental link.
It's like you're imagining a disagreement that's coming, and the topic is something that everybody knows about.
Yeah, it's fun. I'm wondering if we, and when I say we, I mean like white people. I wonder if this is yet another thing that has been shamelessly stolen from black vernacular.
Maybe.
Always a safe assumption.
Yeah.
Often a safe assumption with internet slang, yeah.
If there's a new thing, I'm like, yep, well, we've clearly stolen that from black people.
I do see a relation to no, but seriously. Or no, but why do people... No, but why do people do the thing?
Yeah.
So because why do people...
Hey, I have a related question that I got into an argument with my friends of the other week where we had a social gathering and like talked to people IRL. It was very exciting. I talk to myself sometimes and have pretend arguments with imagined people.
I do that.
Mm-hmm.
And, or I used to do this more as a teenager.
Do you do it in the shower? I definitely do it in the shower.
I don't do it in the shower.
I replay old conversations. Yeah.
And I used to, when I was a teenager, I don't so much anymore, do this very weird kind of manifesting where I would like pretend to be interviewing myself at a future point in my life and talking about my successes and be like, so Hedvig, how does it feel to be like, whatever thing.
Because
it's ridiculous, but it's really fun. I can recommend doing it.
I have a lot of respect for you offering up something that is at least a little bit vulnerable making. Good for you.
Yeah. No. I think I'm an egomaniac, narcissist. No, for sure. No, it's a ridiculous thing, but it's kind of can perk you up. I can recommend doing it. But I was talking to my friends, and because there's no because sounds like you're almost butting in the middle of a conversation with someone is having with an imaginary like person, right? So we were talking about it, and I was saying that like I actually don't get into arguments so often with other people, like serious arguments, because I only argue strongly about things that I know something about, and I don't think I know about a lot of things. So when people are like, I don't know, something, I often don't have an opinion about it. And then my friend said that they only argue about things they're unsure about. Because they want to learn more so that they know where they stand.
Ugh, is this person French?
Is there a better way than disagreeing? Come on. Maybe by listening politely?
I wasn't joking, by the way. Is this person French?
No, and also I might be making them seem worse than they are now. I feel bad.
No. It's just that I've one of the things that I have always really clashed with French culture and French people with is just how much they love to debate everything all of the time. And I've noticed exactly what you've just described, Hedvig, where not just French people, but like the French do it a lot, which is that they will just go headlong into an argument almost as an exploratory exercise into what's going on in that space.
That's exhausting.
Yeah. Whereas I'm right there with you, Headers. When people start really arguing about something, I'm like, well, I don't have a PhD in this, so I'm just going to drink my beer.
This even happens when people like, oh, I think this current COVID restriction is silly. I'm like, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But like, I'm just going to do what my state tells me and get my vaccines. I'm like,
I'm just a good kid.
I will comply.
Yeah, I will comply. I'm sorry. Maybe I'm like sheeple or whatever. But
I'm a live sheeple.
But if it's something I do know something about, I
think all three of us, Daniel maybe the least, but I think Hedvig, you're a little bit like me. I just don't really care for conflict at all. So, like, many a time in workplaces when people have been like, no, I don't know about this vaccine nonsense. On the inside, I want to be like, you're a fucking dickhead, shut up. But, like, on the outside, I'm like, well, I mean, I think you should get them, but, like, you do you, I guess. But I don't think that. I don't think that person should do them. I think they should go and fucking get vaccinated and stop whinging like a child. But I don't say that.
I am willing to get into conflicts if it is something I strongly believe in. Like, I have a reputation within my family and some of my friend circle to, like, always have an opinion about something and always like to argue. But I only do it when I know something about it, and I often
Family
get to
doesn't
lead
count.
the conversation.
Family
which means
doesn't count.
The topic is yeah. Anyway,
we get to be our worst selves around family. Like that, how we act to our family is not a good yardstick of the kind of people we are. If that's the case, literally everyone is a terrible person, right? Because like most people I know behave quite badly in comparison to their normal selves when they're with their family.
Home is where, when you have to go there, they have to take you.
Yeah.
I become an entitled, annoying teenager who's like on the couch and doesn't do the dishes.
Oh, no.
It's really bad. But it only comes out after like 5 days. The first couple of days, I'm like sensible.
We have digressed. Yeah.
What's the next word?
I saw this one first from Peter Clark at Media Active on Twitter. Take a guess what this might be. A crumb maiden. Crumb, C-R-U-M-B. Crumb maiden. A crumb maiden.
Ooh, hang on. I think I might know this.
Oh, really?
Isn't a crumb maiden like some sort of funky, archaic, actual item that was on tables?
Is it a kitchen appliance?
Yeah. Like, was a crumb maiden one of those little things that you put on a table that would, like, you would sweep crumbs into?
And everyone just had these on their tables, and we don't anymore.
Well, I don't think everyone, but, like, some people did.
I don't know. Hedvig, does it show any hits when you look for crumb maiden appliance?
Am I our Googler?
No, but what is that thing? I want to say tea cozy, but I feel like you're right. There was a maiden
like a bread
thing.
box or something. It's okay. So Urban Dictionary says something similar to what you put in the run sheet, which is not that.
This is
I think
pinging
but
I know
something
what
for
you
me.
mean.
I feel like yeah.
Crumb maiden, no.
A crumb maiden is a person.
Okay.
A person, male or female, who works to maintain power structures, typically gendered power structures, which hurt them and or their community, in the hope that they can gather some small residual benefit.
So there's a version of this for African American people, right?
Yep.
Which is being an Uncle Tom.
Yep.
So I've always just used that in other contexts, right? Like Uncle Tomming women's issues or Uncle Tomming gay issues or something like that. I'm glad that there's this because I've always felt like you have to do explaining when you talk about that, when you use like Uncle Tomming women's issues. So I'm liking this crumb maiden, though having said that, I have a feeling I'll probably have to explain crumb maiden now as well. So
maybe. I feel weird about maiden. I feel like we could probably get away. I mean, the definitions that I've seen have taken pains to say this could be a man or a woman. But what about crumb chaser or just a crumb? Don't be a crumb.
It is, yeah. Look, there is and has been a hole linguistically for this role, right? Like as in the last 20, 30 years, we're starting to really sort of drill down into some of these power structures and who they support and who they hurt and all that kind of stuff. There has been a need for this. So I'm glad it exists.
The one that I've always said was pigs for Oscar Mayer. Like it's a club. Pigs for Dorsonia in the Australian context.
Well, American context, because Oscar Mayer is an American company, right?
That's right. The ones who will stand up for the company that kills them.
Yep. Okay.
Let's see. Another one. Rage donation. We've seen lots of different kinds of rage. We've seen road rage and even roid rage.
Rage quit.
Rage quit. We've seen nut rage, when a person on a flight was angry because they didn't get enough nuts. Those little packets of nuts.
I've never come across that one before.
Yes, you have, because we did it 10 years ago.
Oh, Jesus fuck.
I've got it on record. Anyway, this one I noticed from Mayam on Twitter, replying to the Shepherds of Good Hope when they were besieged by truckers in Canada who didn't feel like getting vaccinated against COVID, but they didn't mind invading the place and demanding free food intended for homeless people. Mayam says, so sorry that you guys are getting hassled. Walked past you guys most days going to/from high school a ways back and know all the good you do. A rage donation for your troubles today. And I thought, you know what? I have rage donated before.
Yeah. I can agree with that. I have definitely rage donated.
So I rage donated to the Shepherds of Good Hope. And I know that I try not to support religious charities. And that sounds religious. We can have our feelings about that. But I just thought, you know what? I think a rage donation is in order, so I did.
I very rarely do single donations. Like, I have a standing donation for, like, Wikipedia and a couple of other things that I'm just like, I'll just have it rolling. Because I'm a very forgetful, disorganized person. Yeah. And my random whims is not a way to build a society.
Maybe.
But yeah, no, I understand.
I do have my regulars, but then I also, like, I have this thing that, okay, well, whenever I see the Satanic Temple doing something cool, I'm just going to throw them some bucks.
And you are Exmo through and through.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Maybe that's something people like, other podcasts do like Patreon, but also like Ko-fi or whatever, like single donations. But we have a way of getting single donations.
We do. There is a button on our website, which you can use to donate one time.
And we've had it. I think we've had it mashed once. Yeah.
Yes, twice.
2 mashes.
2 mashes. So mash that thing if you don't want to be a patron.
Yeah.
Last one. Rianne on our Discord server says, "Can I nominate Desire Path as a word of the week? I think it's just such a wholesome term, like a collective dream." All right, you two. I'm sure that you both know what a desire path is.
It is really lovely.
It's one of those things of like, if people know nothing about design at all, they still know this thing.
Yeah,
like,
that's right.
This is the one designy thing that they know, that they hold up as. And it tends to be like a more wholesome and not as intellectually bankrupt version as the Americans spent $2 million designing a pen that works in zero gravity and the Russians used a pencil. Like it seems sort of conceptually adjacent, desire paths do, to that thing, but unlike that thing, which it turns out is completely wrong, and like pencils in space caused like terrible fires and we needed to design that pen and it was really important, blah, blah, blah. Desire paths have no shitty downside. So a desire path is any time that in the built environment, when a human or a number of humans regularly travel a path that has not been designed, right? So the classic here is like a footpath that is like going up towards a road at right angles, but lots and lots of people have to get to something that's like around that corner. So they walk across the grass, cutting at like a 45-degree angle across the path, right? So you'll have path going up, path going across, and then a diagonal line connecting those two bits in the grass that's kind of trod down, because it's a desire path, or a desire line, I've also heard it called. And yes. I don't know if this is true, but I think there is a urban myth that a university somewhere was built.
I think it was in Sweden that they put just lawns
grass
for like the first couple of months, and then we're just like, where are people walking? No, I think it was Linköping.
Oh, I've been to Linköping. It's the Geraldton of Sweden.
I think so, but I'm looking it up now.
I did a little bit of research and tried to find all the places that are listed as the place where desire lines were. They didn't make any sidewalks. So here are the places where they say that desire paths, they just didn't make any sidewalks. They just let everyone walk everywhere, and then they paved it. Boston College, University of California, Davis, University of California, Berkeley, Michigan State University, Illinois Institute of Technology. I could have found more, but these places are all claimed. And you know what? Maybe that's true, because they might have arisen at a time when this was trendy.
I don't buy it personally, simply because pretty much all the institutions you just named are very old. So none of them were built. Like, none of them were like, we're going to build a college, right? They've just been added to and added to.
Yeah, they add to it, but they might have done it when they added that in that section.
Yeah,
maybe.
That I believe, right?
Yeah.
So when Berkeley added like a new like chemistry department in the 40s, I fully believe they might have done this.
Yeah.
I would love to see if there has been anywhere that, like, from top to bottom, when they did a massive new build somewhere that interconnected heaps of different buildings, that they did this. I think that would be really interesting and fun and kooky and, like Daniel said, wholesome.
I have a feeling that there's a very famous street that is actually a desire path.
Oh, God. Is it one of those like San Francisco wobbly streets or something like that?
No, it's New York City.
Oh, really?
Broadway.
You reckon?
You look at how New York is laid out, and it's in a grid, and then you got Broadway just cutting a big diagonal slash all the way down.
Yeah, you're right, it does.
And apparently it was a hunting path that people used, and it got kept. So Broadway in New York City is said to be a desire path. There
is precedent for such a thing. I believe, I've been told by a couple of different Indigenous people here in Perth, that one of our major arterial roads, Leach Highway, is pretty much sort of like metre for metre laid over the path that Whadjuk people would walk from the hills to sort of the coast and back on a 6 to 12 month cycle following the seasons kind of thing. Wow. Because it was just like, hey, look, this is the flattest and easiest, and when you have to cross the rivers, it's the shortest and the shallowest, and like, you know, all of the stuff that, of course, Indigenous people would do because they're not idiots.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's cool.
That's really cool. I wonder, though, because a lot of times you get wibbly-bobbly grid designs in cities that have to do with land ownership, and like there used to be a field and then two brothers quarreled and then they split it halfway on the diagonal, and like at least in like Swedish countryside a lot of roads will be very wibbly wobbly between fields because of shit like that, and like there's a creek, there was a stone. I don't know, maybe that qualifies as the desire path as well, but it's like other circumstances as well.
That's almost like an inverse desire path, isn't it? That's like we will put the path in the place that we begrudgingly concede we hate the least.
Yeah, sort of like that. I always wanted, and if any listener knows of it, a desire path mod for city skylines. Where you can just for a moment turn off and let all your citizens walk on the grass, and then like for a certain amount of time track where they're walking, and then choose to put past
I think
there.
This is your Google 20% time, like sabbatical journey. Like you make this mod.
You are a benevolent leader.
I've thought about it a lot, and I've thought about how difficult it would be to implement, because you'd want them to walk on grass, but not on buildings, and blah, 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 blah. Yeah, it'd be quite complicated actually to get them to do it. But
I can't wait for your mod.
Yeah.
So, no, because Crumb Maiden, Rage Donation, and Desire Path are words of the week. Thanks so much to everybody who contributed, gave us ideas for this show. And of course, thanks to Dr. Rebecca Shapiro. One comment we have from Stan via SpeakPipe. We have a SpeakPipe account. It's a thing that records you and it sends it to us. Stan had a comment about the best translation for French President Emmanuel Macron's "Emmerdé" comment.
Hey guys, I was just listening to the recent episode. As a French listener, although not a native speaker, the Emmanuel Macron thing seems to best translate to me as more like I want to be a pain in your ass, to make you irritated, but also to be an obstruction. I think that's an important part of the message that the French carries there. Anyway, just wanted to throw that your way. Have a great one. Bye.
Oh, okay. I like that. Yeah, that's fun.
And also, it maintains the profanity. It doesn't have shit in it like MRD does, but it does have ass, and I'm willing to take that.
Poop comes from ass.
It does.
It does.
If it comes from anywhere else, go see a doctor. It should not.
Semantically related. Very good. Thanks, Stan. That was awesome. If you would like to record something for us with SpeakPipe, you can. Just head to our website, becauselanguage.com, and it's right up top on the sidebar. Thanks again to everyone who helped us.
I would really like to encourage our listeners to record a little bit for us. It's fun to hear our voices. And if you have a fun word of the week, why don't you, instead of just sending it to us via Fix, you could also record something. Maybe we'll play it on the show.
That's a great
That'll
idea.
be fun.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And besides SpeakPipe, you can also get in touch with us in lots of different places. We are Because Langpod everywhere. We even started doing TikTok videos. We're trying it out. Ben is the most senior TikTok user. I am trying it out, and my For You page is not that good yet.
She remains unconvinced.
Is this for me?
Daniel, how's your TikTok experience so far?
Limited and tentative.
I mean, I also feel like maybe the young kids can just have it. Like maybe not everything has to be, I don't have to be in everything.
Maybe I don't need to be everywhere.
Maybe I don't need to be everywhere, except that our show needs to be everywhere.
Yes.
And yeah, you can record something like we said using SpeakPipe, and you can also send a good old-fashioned email. We are hello@becauselanguage.com. And if you want to help the show, there are a number of ways you can do that. If you like what we're doing, you can send us your show ideas like articles, stories, of words of the week. You can recommend us to your friends, foes, family, and strangers, like Dustin of Salmon Story does on Twitter, or you can write us a review in all the places you can leave review, for example, iTunes. And while we're on the topic of iTunes, maybe we should say that we have pulled our service from Spotify, correct?
Correct. We are no longer on Spotify.
So if you are listening to us via Spotify, I'm sorry. Spotify is not something we want to be on right now. I also just find the way they're dealing with podcast, like the way they're doing like exclusive deals and like paying people, like it's all weird.
It's pretty scummy.
Yeah, podcasts should be like a basic RSS feed that you can subscribe to with any app you want.
Yeah, agreed.
And we love all of our listeners, and some of you like to use the Spotify podcast app, and I'm sorry, but can I recommend the perfectly free, perfectly fine Podcast Addict app, which is free and fine and can just take an RSS feed and you can listen to us and everyone else on it, and it collects little stats and it tells you how many hours you spent on podcast in the last month.
I'm a huge fan of Pocket Casts on the Android platform. You can get on board, does great work. And by great work, I mean it just like has a collection of podcasts that you like the apps don't do that much. So this is what I don't understand about how Spotify is fucking it up. It's like you have a very easy job here when it comes to podcasts. Anyway.
Yeah.
Well, there are lots of ways to listen, and if you want more ways to listen, you can just head over to becauselanguage.com/listen and find or you can just go to your podcaster of choice and find it there.
Yeah, you'll find us. Daniel has put us everywhere.
I just looked on Podcast App. Does anyone want to guess on how much time I've spent in January listening to podcasts?
Ooh, I'm going to guess at least 14 hours a week, so 2 hours a day. What's 14 hours times 4? 4 brains, 28,
60,
40,
56.
40, about 50, 56?
I think you've spent, I'm going to go with what I said, 100 hours.
So I've spent 4 days and 15 hours.
Wow.
That's pretty much dead on what... No, that's twice me, so that's 100 and something, isn't it?
Yep.
24
Wow.
times.
You sleep to some of this stuff, though, don't you?
Yes, but I have a sleep timer that turns off. The sleep timer turns off after 30 minutes.
Oh, wow. Okay, shit, that's for real.
Yeah. So
Okay.
You average 4 hours a day.
I don't know what to say. I've been doing some traveling this week. Yeah.
Okay.
That's it.
Our patrons make it possible for us to do the show without ads. I don't know about you guys, but one of the things I understand but don't enjoy about a lot of podcasts is like that bit in a podcast where the podcasters try and like zhuzh up their ad for the week. So they do like a little bit of a bit and a bit of improv, and then just like it's about mattresses or meal boxes or whatever. And I don't hate the podcasters. I get it. They're just trying to keep the lights on. I fully appreciate that. But I still don't enjoy those parts of the podcast. So all of our patrons allow us to keep doing the show without ads, which is really, really cool. The other awesome thing that it allows us to do is it allows us to make transcripts so our shows are readable and searchable. Shout out to the entire team at SpeechDocs who have to wade through the horrid quagmire that is my audio. Here are some of our top patrons. Dustin, Termy, Crispy, Matt, Whitney, Chris L, Helen, Udo, Jack, Farrowcat, Lord Mortis, Elias, Larry, Christopher, Andy, James, Nigel, Meredith, Kate, Nazrin, Aisha, Sneaky Lima, Moe, Steele, Andrew, Manu, James, Roger, Rianne, Colleen, no, I ran out of breath, Glyph, Ignacio, Sonic, Snedgehog, still my favourite name, Kevin, Jeff, Andy from Logophilius, Samantha, Zoe, Kathy, Rachel, Cheyenne, Felicity, Amir, Andy, Tim, and the wonderful Kate B, who contributed not via Patreon, but with the one-time donation button, which she mashed like a mother on becauselanguage.com. Also, thank you to David, our newest patron at the friend level.
Our theme music has been written and performed by Drew Kaplyanov. He's a member of Ryan Bino and of Didion's Bible. Thank you for listening. We'll catch you next time. Because language.
Pow, 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 pow.
Pew, 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 pew. Okay, I'm stopping recording.
I got news.
You've got news?
Yep.
What's your news?
I'm very excited.
What?
I made the news, you guys. I'm in the news.
You're in the news?
I'm in the news in a very minor way. I'm involved in a TikTok video that got 250,000 views.
My goodness gracious.
I know.
Wow.
This is very exciting. And it's super silly. So the mystery animator, for reasons that shall remain unmentioned, to mention would reveal the identity of said mystery animator, got in touch with me and said, I've been doing this thing on TikTok. I set a challenge, which is that if a video of mine got a certain number of views, I would reach out to you and show you the video and then sort of like tell my followers on TikTok how that went.
So you were the professor of mention. Yes, I did catch that video, but I didn't know that was you.
Yeah. So I think poor mystery animator.
Wait. Timeline.
Okay.
I need a timeline here.
Okay. So basically, I got a message on Discord.
Mystery animator has a TikTok account where they do animations that are funny. Sometimes they get popularity. One of them featured your voice.
No. So one of them featured me as like a sort of retelling of a story, as often happens on TikTok, right? You do a little skit, except of course Mystery Animator does their skits via animation, right? They'll animate like a certain skit with some text. That blew up, or at least it started to blow up. It started to blow up? Oh, I'm
Very
doing
good.
well. It started to blow up and Mystery Animator said, hey, if this reaches a certain number of likes or views or whatever it happens to be, I will show this video to the person that is in that I have made this skit involving, right?
Okay.
Which I think the mystery animator did not fully expect just how bizarre the TikTok algorithm can be and how ferociously some things can blow up. So I think if you hit like a certain sort of up ramp in speed of views, TikTok is like, well, I'm just going to chuck that on like 1 billion For You pages. So then, so then it just went. And then, so Mystery Animator showed me, I responded. Then Mystery Animator made a follow-up with my response, and that's the one that went like full tilt bananas.
Oh my goodness. Was it safe for work?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah. It's
What
all
was it
entirely
about?
PG. Well, I can't, if people want to do a little bit of sleuthing to uncover potentially the identity of the mystery animator, that is for them to do, but I refuse, madam.
But if I would want to watch the TikTok that you're talking about, can't keep that from me.
I cannot, but I will not show it to you in a public fora. I will show you off
Ben,
cam.
you can't talk. This is so stupid. Everyone's gonna Google Ben Ainsley mystery animation on TikTok and find it.
Do you know what? Maybe. Let's find out.
I'm gonna see if that does anything.
Let's get back on track.
She's doing it live. Yes, Daniel, please. What's happening in the world of linguistics outside of me being super mega TikTok famous?
By the way, Daniel, you don't drink alcohol, right?
Correct.
I figured out a new adult non-alcoholic drink that I like. Just tonic water with mandarins in it.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
All right.
No gin.
Yep.
It's not horrible.
There you go.
Not horrible is a good start.
I give you permission to also just like beverages that aren't necessarily adult. For instance, I very much enjoy cordial and fizzy water.
Yeah.
It's very nice.
I do as well, but I find that a lot of this is slightly on the less sweet end of the spectrum. There's just that bitterness thing that is a bit nice.
Tonic water has a sharp note, doesn't it?
Quinine?
Yes, quinine.
So Indian tonic water versus plain tonic water is quite different.
Okay. So I hear. Yeah, the quinine amount is very substantial in the subcontinent, I believe.
Yep. Yeah, because it was used against malaria.
Yes.
Which I think is not a thing they figured out.
I thought it was vaguely a thing.
I thought it was not, they finally went, oh, it turns out that doesn't do anything. And a bunch of British people just wanted to be drunk.
I think that sounds like one of those things that could be true, because everything turns out not to be a thing eventually, right?
Yeah, basically. We should not try at anything because the nihilists are fundamentally correct.
Quinine is a medication used to treat malaria.
Okay.
I mean, it can be used to treat it without working, right?
Yeah, and you could put a little bit in your drink, so little that it wouldn't have any effect on malaria.
Yeah. They might be doing an accidental homeopathy.
As of 2006, quinine is no longer recommended by the World Health Organization as a first-line treatment for malaria because there are other substances that are equally effective with fewer side effects.
There we go.
Okay. That
so
still works.
It
still works, but there's better stuff now.
But there's better stuff that doesn't give you leg cramps and other things that they list.
Surely I think that leads strength to Daniel's argument. Has anyone here ever got cramps from drinking tonic water? Like, how much tonic water would you need to drink?
I think tonic water is fairly diluted. I think the quinine medicinal use, you get it as a salt. You get it like way more. But I don't know.
That makes the fact that it has medicine in it probably explains why it's called tonic water, because it's a tonic. Oh, you two are a tonic. You make me feel better. That's what people say.
Yes.